Welcome to Whispers Uncut, the podcast that dives deeper into the stories and themes of the Whispers documentary. I'm Saida, and here we explore unfiltered narratives and diverse perspectives on the challenges and resilience of LGBTQ+ individuals in Uganda. We'll hear from voices within and outside the community, enriching our conversation about humanity, justice, and acceptance. Let's uncover these powerful stories together. Today we welcome Wegner, one of the participants of the documentary. Despite the risks and challenges, Wegner continues to fight for themselves and others. They have seen firsthand how tough laws affect the community and how global politics play a role. Join us as Wegner shares a story of courage and hope in facing these challenges every day. How have you been?
I've been okay. We live each day as it comes, literally. But I've been okay.
What's changed in your life since we last spoke?
I think a lot. Like there's so much going on. Say most of the projects are on hold because of the entire U.S. Trump situation. So it's harder days than others, but we are trying to survive. But also, of course, the laws are still as tight as they were then.
And has anything
So
changed?
there's not much that has been easy, and of course we are now much more limited to converging or holding safe spaces, but we are living each day as it comes, but also taking advantage of social media platforms.
How are you using social media platforms right now?
Of course, we are doing very little advocacy because, say in Uganda currently, the speaker at some point towards the end of last year made a comment. One of the politicians made a comment on one of the organizations that support queer persons, and they were trying to look for the people that are running the organization because of the things they had posted on their Twitter space regarding advocacy. So we are doing what we call unfaced advocacy, for lack of a better word. But also most organizations are like holding back on doing any advocacy. So it's just one-on-one check-ins. Say you hold a WhatsApp platform, have a safe conversation with people that are in your close circles mainly, and very little engagement on an open space level.
So how is it with the trust between people in those groups right now?
Trust is literally subjective for me because I cannot be sure whether or not I can trust you. Say if I'm put in a situation where it's my life over another's, the likelihood of choosing mine over the other is definitely that I'll choose me. So it's living, just hoping that the person that is in this circle is trying to keep themselves safe as much as you are trying to keep yourself safe, but one another that it's us against an entire country. So if we start practicing dishonesty amongst us, then who will trust us if we cannot even work around each other in spaces where we can exhibit trust and honesty with one another. So it is, each one of us is trying to make sure, don't get arrested, don't get violated, try to keep yourself safe. So it's just making sure that everyone does the best they can, or as is expected of them, so that their actions do not jeopardize the life or the safety of the rest of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen the documentary. How do you feel about it? Does it give an accurate picture of your experience?
The documentary was good. We actually had it. We watched it from the office space with Iris, and most of the people that appeared in the documentary were actually present during the time when we were watching it. And by the end of the documentary, we all shared our opinions on what we think, and we all thought it put out the message we're trying to bring across, but also the voice was presently heard, and there was a face value to it.
Yeah.
So overall, would say it is a very good one.
Okay. Glad to hear that. You already spoke a bit about the current situation in Uganda for the queer community. Can you tell us a bit more about that? How are the upcoming elections influencing the situation for you?
So we're having elections next year. And of course, right from when the whole drama of how the law came into existence, most of some of the reasons of the law were mainly political. So you will definitely find different political parties, even to date, blaming one another for you're supporting this category of people. Say you're supporting homosexuals, you're being investigators, that's why you're pushing the agenda. And it is entirely just politicians trying to get votes, because at the end of the day, is when they say the other one is supporting our kind of community, then the citizens, because they are homophobic, they feel like they don't want to associate with someone who is phasing out their traditional values, or their would be things that are accepted in our society or called moral. So politicians are continuously using it to push their political agendas, and of course, they're still politicizing it and saying we are promoting family. We don't want your children to be recruited or groomed or initiated. And that is a truth we are making peace with, because there is not much we can do, but also because we know it's not like when we speak now, there is anything that is going to change. And considering that speaking about it is considered as promotion in the law, and that could get you arrested, most of us are really, really quiet about it. And even organizations that are doing human rights advocacy are very cautious about what they say, how they say it, and how it reflects or how it gets them in harm's way with the law. So we are very silent about it, but politically, different politicians keep using it as a way of driving their political agendas. And it's something we are now making peace with.
Okay, and how so like the society itself, you already said that it's become harder.
Yes.
Do you have examples of what's been happening?
Of course, violations are still ongoing. Uh, for queer people, say if you're outed by anyone, you will hear uh, someone has been violated. People still get arrested to date, and there is not much that can be done when you have gotten arrested. It's like it's chance or luck for you to get out uh, on bail or on anything, because of the nature of the crime they are holding you convicted for. But also, it is just people living with the fear of we do not understand this. This doesn't seem normal. Everyone is speaking ill about it, and so that hate speech that was pushed for during the time when the law was being passed, the misinformation and disinformation that was done is still undone, and its effects are still reflecting on us. But also that resistance and rejection from the society of these are people who don't belong is something that we feel may never go away, but we have hope that maybe someday things may change. So it's just making sure you keep yourself safe the best way you can. And if you find yourself in harm's way and the community in which you're staying starts treating you in a way you don't understand, or people start pointing fingers about your sexuality, it is always safer to move
Yeah.
if you have the resources to.
And are there also cases of people being falsely accused?
I really have no clarity on that.
Okay.
But also, take an example. If they said, when you are this, and I'm in front of a police officer, or I'm at a police station, I have been arrested, I would deny, not because that is not who I am, but
Of
because
course.
it is safer to deny than to
Of
confirm
course. Yeah.
to them. So, of course, there may be some cases, though not clearly documented, of
Yeah.
people that have been victims of false accusations. That could be in schools, it could be in communities where you're having wrangles with the society, people within the society in which you are, but I don't have a clear say on this person has been wrongly accused. But
Yeah.
also because everyone say if I was to plead in court, I would say I'm not, because I want to make sure I don't get arrested. So
Of course, yeah. But I'm thinking like this oppression of the LGBTQ plus community, it's affecting, of course, the whole society, because people say I have a grudge against somebody. I can easily say, okay, this person, they're trans or something, and then they will get in all kinds of trouble, even if they're not.
yes, I think at the beginning when the law was had just been passed, that was one of the biggest issues, because people would randomly say, I think this person is because of what they look like. But
Yeah.
because of the constant petitions, certain parts of the law were revised. So if someone, say, wrongly accused another, and it is proven that they were wrongly accused, I think there would be a little bit of justice.
What is the impact, if any, of the election of Donald Trump in the United States on your situation?
So, for starters, is most of the organizations that were doing advocacy for queer persons or for the community had funding from uh, PEPFAR, from USAID, from a number of organizations in the US, which funding has been halted. But also, most of us were doing HIV related service provision projects, and that has had some hiccups since. But also, most of us have lost funding for projects because the funding is no longer going to support any organizations that are doing work related to the LGBTIQ community. So there has been a lot of pressure. There is tension. There is a lot of stress around the community, because now some of us don't have jobs anymore, because the organization has no money to run a project or to pay staff, and so it has been hard in general.
Are you aware that Iris has been getting questions about why she didn't make the documentary with a Ugandese film crew instead of a only Dutch film crew?
I No, no, no.
Okay, yeah, but people are asking her about it. Do you think she should have asked Ugandese people to film instead?
For security reasons, I would I wouldn't have felt safe also if it were a Ugandan, because I can't win a gift if I come up and say these are people that are part of this community that we are against and can be held incriminated by the law because of the things they said. So I would not necessarily trust someone who is under the same rules or laws I am, and whose professionalism or principles could be compromised by pressure from a higher power. So I felt mostly that it was safer to use people who are not subjected to the same pressure of the government that we are worried about, or that is compromising our safety in the first place. So I don't have any issues, or I felt much more confident to express myself, because I was confident that the team I was doing it before would not jeopardize my safety when I am still at home. And that would not have been the case if I was using a team in Uganda, not because they're not good or they don't have the right professional ethics, but because we are living under the same pressure and stress and rules and regulations. And I don't think if they were put in a position to expose what they know, but also at the time of the filming, the law expected that anyone who knows was expected to report what they know about people of the LGBT community. So that law would hold them accountable to the government, but also would put them in a position where they have to choose between their job and reporting as an obligation by the law. So I feel it was safer to use a different crew for the documentary.
Yeah, it's hard to trust people from who are from Uganda. I get
Some
that.
can do it, but given the times, it was tricky because we didn't know who is who or
Yeah,
what who is looking for. So at the time, it was not safe.
yeah. Oh, I hope that people will understand that as well.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, can you tell us about the organization you work for? What are your main goals, and how are you working toward those goals?
So the organization I'm working for is an entirely queer-led organization. It has existed since 2019. We serve majorly the LBQ community, but also during the time of the law, we expanded more to the entire community because mental health is one of our biggest strengths. And so we're giving mental health and psychosocial services to everyone that needed them in the safest way possible, but also because at the time it was a community need, not necessarily an organization's niche. But also, if we think about the other things we do, we are an organization that also promotes feminism. That is one of our lenses. We also do a lot of sexual reproductive health and rights advocacy. But we have four major lenses. If I'm just to break them down, we have feminist leadership. Every year we have an institute called Inzu ya Nawe Leadership Institute, where we collect different LBQ women cross country and then train them on feminist principles and also leadership to prepare them for the political space. Then political participation is also one of our lenses. We encourage a number of LBQ women to take leadership spaces. For now, we are still doing that at grassroots level. Say they are taking leadership spaces at local councils, like in different districts. We've not been strong enough to push to parliament level, but we're getting there hopefully. Though now, given the current environment, it's a bit tricky, but hope sometime the environment will be stable enough to encourage that or give room for that. We also have holistic healing justice, is where we cover mental health, psychosocial support, and this we do it currently. We are doing it for the entire community, not just for LBQ women, and we are doing it using digital platforms. We are doing one-on-one sessions. We are also encouraging group therapy for, say, organizations. Then we also have SRH advocacy, SRHR advocacy, that is sexual reproductive health rights advocacy. And last year we started an SRHR house for LBQ women. We did research on LBQ women living with HIV in 2 different districts. Hopefully, if we get funding, we can do it in the other districts or the other 2 regions that we didn't go to, so that we are able to give a clear picture of how LBQ women are affected with HIV. We also produced, still under this, a safe sex toolkit and an LBQ training manual by the end of the project, and did a lot of dissemination.
And how do you measure if you're successful?
So most of the time, say at the beginning of each year, we set a target of how many people we say intend to reach. So take an example for the feminist leadership. The Inzu ya Nawe, in every cohort, we have about 25 to 30 participants from different regions. So the participants that we get, the next year we have a different slot of participants. So we have been doing it for more than 4 years now, meaning in each cohort, if we had 25 participants, we have over about more than 100 people out there that have been beneficiaries from our Leadership Institute for the Inzu ya Nawe. Then for the psychosocial support, of course, we have success stories of people that have recovered from their depression, people that have progressed from stressful situations, especially during the passing of the law, but also way before, because mental health issues are a big thing in the community, but also drug abuse is also an issue. So we give mental health support services to different people, and we have a database that monitors progress of the beneficiaries of the mental health services. And there's always check-ins to know how they are progressing, even after they have left the one-on-one sessions or the program. if I may use the word. Then, of course, we also do a number of community outreaches. Say last year during our SRHR project of the SRH house, we did about 10 outreaches in 2 districts, and in each outreach we would do a lot of HIV testing for LBQ women. We did counseling, we distributed lubricants. By the time we finished producing the manuals, we went back and did trainings with health care workers on how they will be giving services to LBQ women living with HIV. So most of the time we use a number of participants that benefited from the programs, but also success stories of different people that have benefited from our programs, but also existence of things like the SRH house, which is currently existent, and giving access to information, but also services and referrals to LBQ women.
Okay, how are you able to do all of this secretly?
Of course, not all of it has been done prior to the law being passed. Some of the work we did when the environment was still reasonably safe. But also, prior to the law being passed, work still had to be done because we were still victims of circumstances that whether or not there is a law that is existent. So we try to use, to leverage on the networks we have. Say, we do not advertise publicly. If we are going to run a consultative meetings, we will reach out to organizations that we are confident are dealing in the same programming or the same kind of work or with the same values. So you'll find we are going to ask each organization or partnering organization to send out 2 to 3 participants, depending on the number we want. Say if it is for the institute, we can say every organization can send us 2 people that have never been part of the institute. So we've taken advantage of the networks we already have, but also we are capitalizing a lot on what we call internal recruitment. So we no longer, in the past, you publicly advertise and say, I'm looking for people that are going to participate in this, or we have a call for participants in the institute, or there is an outreach. So we don't publicly address that, put that out, but also we have done a lot of partnerships and MOU signing with like-minded organizations. So we directly impact their beneficiaries or their members, and that way we are able to keep doing what we do within the safest way possible, but also with people or with circles that we are sure of. But also, of course, we take advantage of making allies with persons that have, for lack of a better word, have a reasonable level of acceptance or humanity. And that has also served well because, say, the SRHR House project was done with a government-related organization through a fund, EJAF. And so they try to give us the support the best way they can. But we've also done a lot of language toning. Say there are certain words we don't use when we are in the field or when we are doing outreaches, especially when we are interacting with government officials or seeking permission to hold conversations. There are certain words you don't use. For lack of a better word, we are trying to be as political as the system is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our goal with the documentary has always been to firstly inform the public about the situation of LGBTQ plus people in Uganda. Just to let people know that nobody chooses to be queer and to show the humanity of the people. And secondly, our goal is to get donations from the documentary to help the queer community in Uganda. And since your organization is already established and has such a big network, we chose to let you distribute the funds. Can you tell us what you will use the donations for?
So as we earlier discussed with Iris on our intentions, because we are having a lot of halting of funds from government donations of other countries, but also from bigger funders. We believe that the opportunity of receiving this kind of funds will cover up that gap of funds that are already lost. But we also believe that when we receive the funds, of the organizational members that participated in the documentary will be tasked to come up with a project idea that will be used, that they will implement. And so the funds, when received, each of the participants or the people that were in the documentary will have an opportunity to get access to funding to implement a project that under their organization that will whose results will be shared across. But also, most importantly, we also intend to do a lot of projects on SRH related services and hold conversations and create safe spaces for community members, because this is something that is phasing out. A lot of organizations are closing, unfortunately, but also there's a lot of backlash, and we have an entire shrinking space of existence. And we feel that with these funds, we'll be able to recreate or reimagine or rebuild what has been shrunk by the existing circumstances that have not been really fair. But also, more to that will be want to create a safe house where we can be able to have all persons get access to services that are related to, say, queer persons living with HIV have access to HIV related services without worrying about going to a clinic. I don't want to call it a drop-in center like we initially were using for other organizations that were dealing with HIV related services, because this will be a more holistic space where you can come and just have mental health services, you can have HIV related services, you can hold safe conversations as a community, you can do what we call productive wellness. So we expect that using these funds we'll be able to rebuild what has been lost in general.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And do you have an estimate of how much funds you've lost?
When I speak about lost funds, if I'm speaking, I cannot just speak for our organization,
Yeah,
because we are an entire community, and every fund that is lost definitely affects my
everyone.
access to services, it affects my existence, it affects my capacity to live freely or live comfortably. So I have no clear estimate of how much funding has been lost, because it is by organization.
Okay.
It is by organization, but as a community, because most of the funding that has been lost is funding that was intended to LGBTQ services, I feel like we have lost a lot as a community, because most people are pulling out because of the policies and the executive orders that are being passed. So I feel like so much has been lost, and we have no clear estimate of how much yet, because so much still continues to get lost in that way.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the questions that I had. Is there anything else that you would like to say that we didn't talk about yet?
Nothing in particular, but I want to say thank you to you and your team for considering or thinking about taking on the documentary ideology, and also making our voices heard, but also pushing through for an initiative that can yield hope for us in the future, but also encouraging us to have faith and hope that things will get better with the support we may receive from this documentary. We are also very hopeful that this is an opportunity for us to rebuild a safe space for ourselves in a country like Uganda, but also to continue fighting for a better place that is more accepting. But also the fact that our voices being heard is just enough to create a beautiful future for those that will come after us if we have time. So thank you.
Thank you so much for participating. It took a lot of courage to talk to us and to have this in a documentary. We are very grateful that you wanted to share this with us. And I really hope that the documentary can help you make it better for people in Uganda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I really, when I visited Uganda, it's such a beautiful country with such nice people, and I still just can't, not that I can't believe it, but I can't comprehend how there can be such, such a divide, because on the surface, you don't really notice it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
It really makes me sad that that the beautiful and kind people that I met, that they're having such a hard time.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Whispers Uncut. Today's episode is just one part of a larger conversation about humanity, justice, and acceptance. To ensure you don't miss any of our in-depth discussions, please subscribe to our podcast. Continue to listen, question, and stand with us as we amplify the voices that advocate for change.